Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you a few techniques on how to extract data from a text file, paste it into Excel, use some cleansing techniques to get that data into a format that we can use for something else. Let's start with the text file. We need to copy this information. Let's start by Control and A to select all, Control and C to copy, and we'll go into cell A1 and we'll do Control and V to paste. Once the data's in, let's have a quick look. By resizing column A, we can see that all the information that we've copied from the text file has gone into one cell. So there's the headers and all the information's in one cell, and we really need to split that out. You can see that the character in between the line is separating each piece of data or each piece of text that we need to have in its own cell. As we see below, it's the same, but this time it's been separated by a comma. So the comma is separating out the information that we need to split into each individual cell. Let's start with the top line. If we click into the text box, or we can go up into the data bar, we can copy this line, and we're going to go to the data tab. We're going to go to text to columns. This opens up the wizard that helps the support go through this process. What we want to do is use a delimited. There's indicators here that this is how you separate the text or data using different characters. We're going to go to next. Next, what we want to do is in the delimiter section, we want to make sure the box for other is ticked. And then in this little box, we can paste in the character we've already copied. As you can see, as soon as I've done that, you can see that the data preview, before I've added that character, is everything's in one cell. Adding this character in the box has split every piece of information as we need it. So if we click finish and we go back into Excel, we can see that it's now separated all the headers just as we need. So they all look correct. What we need to do now is do that with a body of data. We can see that they've all been separated by the comma. So we go back into text to columns. We're going to go back into the delimited. We can see in the preview below, before we've made our change, we're going to delete the line from before. We're going to unselect other. I'm going to select comma. As soon as we've done that, you can see that it's actually split out the data. You can see the data will need a bit more cleansing. If we start by clicking finish, one technique I do recommend is to go back into the text to columns and go back into the delimited, and let's unselect this because next time you copy and paste, it will apply this. So let's click finish. We've done that. Let's resize all of our data so it's all in one easy to look format. Let's remove this row 2 by delete that out. Now we just need to cleanse this data. We need to cleanse the data by removing any unneeded spaces. Let's have a look in the header. You can see that there's a space at the beginning of this word. We need to remove all the spaces, which we can use the trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate the data to just to the side using some formulas to help. So let's start with the trim, and we'll start with that on the top row. What we're going to do is just going to select cell A1. Once we've done that, we're just going to leave the formula in this format. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy the formula along the same number of rows. And what that will do is it'll just work across the whole row. We'll need to go to column Q. Let's reset. Let's resize. Once we've done that, we can see the formulas in there, and it's actually tidying up all of them spaces. So this looks like a better format. I'd like to reuse that on some more of these in the data below. Let's copy that down. That looks a bit better. And if we was to use this same formula for the whole selection of data, if we was to use the formula for the whole, we could copy this and we could use this for the whole data set. Let's copy and fill the whole space, and we've now applied the trim to the whole data set. I'm not totally happy with that, so I'd like to make some changes to the formula to make it a little bit better. I'd also like to deal with all my values and dates separately, so I'm going to remove them. And let's look at how we can improve this. Let's work on the customer code section. The trim is doing its job, but what I'd like to do is also make all the letters capital. So in order to do that, what we can do is go to the beginning after the equals, and we just need to type upper. And this will add an uppercase conversion to our text on the trimmed data, and we just need to close that off one more time with a bracket at the end, press enter. We can now drag this formula down by Control and D. It's now trimmed all the text and capitalized all of the letters. Let's have a look at the second, which is the customer name. Let's just have a look at a little bit more information. It looks like everything has worked in the way that I want, so I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the product. Again, that looks like it's trimmed all the data just how we want. There's no spaces. Everything looks to be how I want. I think what I'd also like to do in this, I think I'd like all the words to start with a capital letter. So in order to do that, well, we can go to the front of the trim, just after equals, and we'll type the word proper. Once we start typing that, it comes up. We can see we activate proper, and we'll put closing bracket at the end and press enter. Now we've done that, we can drag this formula down. So we select it all, Control and D. What you can see there, it's added a capital to each of the words at the beginning. Let's move on to the second one, which I think I'd like to do the same formula in the color. So let's copy that and we'll paste it in this cell and we'll copy that formula down. That's tidied that up. Let's do the same with the sales rep. Let's paste that over, capitalize the first letter of each one by copying the formula in color. Move over to this cell, paste that in. Let's drag that formula down. That works for us. Okay, let's look at the cells that we are now missing. Now we've done sales rep, we need to go back to the quantity. I'm happy with how the quantity is, so I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in just as values. In the section where we're replacing the data, same with the sell price. It's got the number format I want and it's also got the pound sign, so I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to paste that over into column O. And finally, we've got the date. So it looks like here we have some different date formats. And there's also maybe some errors, some spaces. So for the date section, we're going to press Control and F, which will bring up our find and replace. We're going to go into the replace section and we're going to add just one space and we're going to leave the replace with empty. Once we've done that, we need to make sure that we've selected the range of data where we want to find and replace. What we're doing is find and replace, finding all the spaces and replacing them with no spaces. When we click replace all, you can see all the dates have now in the correct format, which is the UK format, which goes day, month, year. Now we can copy this, paste it in this column P, and once we've done that, we've actually replaced all of the original data with a more cleansed format. We've now swapped the previous format to something a little bit more cleansed. What we need to do is copy the whole range and paste it as values because the formula is still there. Once we've done that, we can remove the original source and we are back to an easier format to work with. So that's one technique on how you can take some data from a text file using your text to columns and some manipulation techniques to trim and clean your data to be easier to work with. So that's the first option. I want to show you another way that you could do this that would help with taking your data from a format such as a text file and getting it into Excel. I'm going to show you that. So we'll just click File, Save As. We wait for the file to load. And then at the bottom, where it says file name, we're going to type .csv. And what we're going to do is when we do this, you should see an additional file should turn up in this folder. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Why not catch me in the next one?